Welcome to Distracted, the podcast with Angela Lockwood, the place where you will find practical brain-boosting strategies, expert insights, and real-life stories to help busy brains thrive in the age of distraction. Let's go. Hi everyone, welcome to Distracted. I'm Angela Lockwood. It is so nice to have you here because it is now February, which a whole month has already gone, which always surprises me because we do it every year. We go, wow, the year is moving so fast, but it happens every single year, right? And for many of you this week, we have a really exciting week. Kids are starting back at school. Now, wherever you're listening to this, I know that there's lots of different versions of when kids start school. But here in Australia, where I'm recording this episode, kids are starting to go back this week, and they've started either the beginning of the week, over the course of the week. And so it's a really exciting time for parents, but sometimes it is not so exciting for kids. So today we're going to dive into one of the most important skills that kids need really to set themselves up for a really nice, smooth, calm year. And so today it's really a focus on you parents and educators who have got special children in your lives who you want to see them really thrive this year. So if you are a parent or an educator, this will be the perfect episode for you to listen to right now. Because with school starting back, many children will face big emotions. There's changes in routine. For a lot of kids, they've been on holidays for a very long time, or they've even finished at the school, daycare at the end of last year. So now they're starting back into a whole new experience for them. So their lives are going to be completely changed. And they often through this really have a lot of challenging moments in managing their feelings, which, as you can imagine, change brings out a lot of uncertainty. It brings out a lot of fear, and it brings out a lot of the unknown, which we know can cause a lot of stress. Now, for some kids, they jump in, they love it, they're sweet, they're ready to go. But most kids, the change will change some of their emotions. So that's why this topic today, I really want to share with you, because I'll be sharing practical ways that you can support kids in developing self-regulation skills. And look, I know years and years ago, self-regulation wasn't really even a term. Actually, it wasn't even years and years ago. It was only a couple of years ago that self-regulation really wasn't a very highly talked about topic. I love now that we talk about self-regulation very openly. And in fact, I get asked even to speak about self-regulation to adults when we look at how do we manage overwhelm? How do we stay focused, or how do we find calm in our thinking? And self-regulation is something that we're becoming more and more comfortable with. But if you are somebody who really is unfamiliar with what self-regulation is, or you know a little bit about it but not really sure, I'm going to jump into what that is, what it looks like, why it's important. But how can you as a parent or as an educator really encourage kids' development of their self-regulation skills? I really am excited to bring this topic to you because what we're doing with these early years for kids is setting up success for great behaviours, great habits, better self-understanding for later in life. And like I just said, there's so many times that I'm asked to speak to adults around self-regulation because most adults are still struggling themselves, right? Most adults are still trying to work out their own emotions and how to work with their emotions and how to respond to emotions that make them feel uncomfortable. So how can we expect our young kids to be able to know how to handle their emotions or how to be with their emotions or understand their emotions if us as adults find them tricky too? But what we know with self-regulation, it's really crucial for a few things. So let's just start from here. It helps kids handle frustration. It helps them handle transitions. And really importantly, it helps them handle disappointment. We see so many times that as parents and as adults in children's lives, we try to jump in and create a life where kids don't ever feel those emotions that make them feel uncomfortable, like disappointment or like sadness or fear or all these other emotions that we always try to sort of steer clear of. We want our kids to be happy. And in fact, a lot of adults will say, what do you want for kids? And it's usually, I just want them to be happy. But the reality is we can't be happy all the time. And it's a very natural, very, just a very natural thing that we have the whole gamut of emotions, because all of those emotions will pop up in our lives sometimes. So we need to help our kids be comfortable with all of those different emotions so that they can help, work with themselves when those emotions pop up without always needing adult intervention. Now, while I'm talking about all this stuff, your adults listening to this, I am 100% certain you will get some moments where you will be like, that's actually really helpful for me too. And it is brilliant if that happens for you, because what I find always through my work in talking about distraction and talking about focus and talking about, taking action in our lives, finding calm in our lives, dealing with overwhelm, that it's not just unique to a certain age or stage of life. Kids experience a lot of these feelings, but also, and a lot of these experiences really pop up at any stage of our life cycle. So if I'm talking about kids and you're like, my gosh, I need to work on this, then I would love for you to write down some points that you're feeling, you're experiencing, some of your own aha moments, so that this episode can have benefit both for you and also for the children in your life. So self-regulation, there's a couple of things we will talk about in a moment where I'll really jump into what it looks like. But let's just talk about when school starts, which is right now for a lot of kids. Now, it doesn't matter even if you're listening to this 6 months down the track. It'll be great information for you to really think, a child in your class or one of your own children might be really struggling with some big emotions, or having a really difficult time in understanding their emotions. This will be perfect for you. It'll be a great reminder. It's just that right now with school starting, usually these big emotions come out. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen my child do this. Or you might be teaching in front of your class and a child has a big meltdown who the parents told you was really cruisy, that they were kids that were really chilled, had a great experience at preschool, but now you're just seeing this kid constantly melting down. So starting school is a really big process for kids. And it's not just adjusting to this new environment, it's adjusting to a new schedule. It's also managing all the different social interactions that these kids are having. They're meeting new people. They don't just have their besties at school. They've now got all these people that they've never met, they've never seen, kids that they may not connect with, kids that they might connect with, kids that they want to connect with. So all of these different social interactions can also feel very overwhelming. And kids, when they get to school, have to deal with a lot of different things that happen that are out of their control, that things don't always go as planned in a school environment. And there's often a lot of unexpected things that pop up in school. So frustration is often an emotion that'll pop up a lot more in primary school because of the nature of what they do at school and what they're learning. And things now are getting a little bit more cognitively demanding as well. So kids that maybe would have found playing and social interactions really easy, now that there's a cognitive layer to their learning at school, things may not be coming so easy to them, and they might find that they have to push through some of that frustration. There's a whole lot of other challenges. I'm not painting a very positive start to the school year for these kids, am I? But it is also a very amazing, wonderful time. But it's an important transition time. I think when we start school, when kids start school, it's a really important milestone in their life, just as it is when kids leave primary school to go into their first year of high school, or even high school leaving to go into the big bad world as well, or the big exciting world. So all of these milestones for kids are really important, but it also really tests our ability to work with our emotions, and it tests our ability to see how am I going to cope with all of these changes. And it's not just the kids that are going through all of these experiences and these emotions, it's also the adults. I see it a lot of time this time of the year when educators have this whole new class come in, and oh my God, the first couple of weeks are stress time because they're trying to understand the kids' learning needs. They're trying to understand their strengths, where they need to focus. They're trying to get into their own rhythm and own routine as well. So it can be a really stressful time for educators as well this time of the year. And now let's talk about the parents. It is either a wonderful time of the year where you're like, yes, they're at school. I've been waiting for this. This is amazing. Or it can also be, and it often is, a very big change in the way that you're seeing your child and you're experiencing your child, because they come home from school with all these new experiences that are either really exciting or might have been challenging, or it might have even been a bit distressing for them. So you as a parent are now going, do I have the skills to support my kids as well? So we're going to jump into a bit of that as well in this episode. So you can see this is a really important episode, whether or not you're an educator or a parent. And before I jump in, I just wanted to mention for you educators that are listening, particularly you primary school teachers, so sort of first year of school to year 6, we have the Learning Bridge membership available to you. If you head on over to angelalockwood.com.au/educators, all of the information is on there for you. It's a beautiful, supportive membership for you educators, both childcare educators and early years primary school educators, in order to support you and give you more detailed information, particularly even on topics like this, of how you can better support the kids in your class, or even just understand the children in your class's needs and get the support that you need. It's not just a learning platform where it's one way. It's a time where you can actually build relationships with other educators as well, who are obviously really interested in supporting their needs and supporting the needs of the kids in their class. So the Learning Bridge is just for you beautiful educators, and we have live masterclasses every month with a theme, as well as lots of downloadable resources. And you also have an opportunity to ask me questions with all of my experience of working in education settings for 20 years. I'm there as your support crew. So head on over to angelalockwood.com.au/educators, and that Learning Bridge membership is on there for you. So let's have a look at what emotional self-regulation really is. Okay, so what exactly is it? Because it does have a lot of different nuances to it. But the actual definition of it is the ability to recognize and understand and manage emotions in a way that's appropriate for the situation. And that's a really important point just to really start off with, that emotional regulation isn't just being able to stay calm. And in my work, even with frontline workers like police, actually staying emotionally regulated is not about being calm in a moment. It's about even just being able to recognize, right now I'm feeling this, and I'm feeling this because of these reasons. Now, what do I need to do about it? And you can hear it's quite a complex process. It's not just a matter of going, I am feeling angry right now. What am I going to do about it? Or I just need to be calm, be calm, be calm. And then you start to stress about the fact that you're not calm. So emotional regulation, it's actually quite a detailed process about recognizing how you're feeling, understanding why you're feeling it, and then being able to manage an appropriate response for that current situation. And situations are so different, right? So that if you are angry in a moment where someone steals something for you from you, versus if you're feeling angry because someone pushed in front of you in the line. The emotion's still anger, but the situation probably warrants a very different response. And that's what emotional regulation is all about. It's being able to recognize what am I feeling, understanding why I'm feeling it, and managing it in a way that's appropriate for the situation. Self-regulation also helps children, I guess, control their emotional reactions. It helps them adjust their responses to whatever's going on and to use coping strategies to stay calm. Now, I really need to just sort of press pause for a moment here, because can you hear all of this? You're like, this is quite complex. And it can be. And what we're trying to do, particularly when we're telling, our kids are upset and we're telling them to calm down, calm down, calm down, without allowing them or giving them the skills to work through this process, we're not teaching them how to be able to regulate their emotions in an appropriate way, because what we're doing is we're giving them the solution straight away without giving them the tools. So I'll talk to you about what some of this is, but we are needing to teach our kids the skills, teaching them how to recognize, how to understand, and how to manage the emotions and sort of facilitate an appropriate response for them. But they don't naturally know this. It's skills that need to be taught. So we'll work through what some of those skills are, but we won't get into too much because there is so much information that I can tell you. I just want in this podcast in this episode to really just give you that awareness of going, hey, the next couple of weeks is going to be pretty tough for everybody, particularly if your child's starting school, but even just going back to school, even if your child's like in grade 3 or if they're in grade 8 and they're going back to school, the first couple of weeks of starting a new year can be quite emotionally responsive and emotionally tiring for everybody. So what emotional regulation does, okay, or it helps kids to adapt to changes and setbacks, which I've sort of talked about. This time of the year is can be pretty stressful. Okay, so being able to regulate their sort of emotions, but also just regulate themselves, gives kids the ability to be able to be better responsive to when things don't go their way or to things that change in their environment or in their schedule. Okay, it also supports their attention and learning and all their social skills that need to occur in the classroom and out in the playground. And what it also does when kids can develop an understanding of their emotions and feel what's going on for them, what we find is it reduces a lot of these emotional outbursts and frustration that we can often see in kids when they're tired or when they're going through these changes. And I'm seeing a lot of, kids, particularly in the last 20 years of when I was actually in classrooms, a lot of kids are finding it really difficult to manage frustration or disappointment. They're struggling with transitions, and what I mean by that is like leaving lunch to come back into the classroom and sit and do work. And this is also very age dependent as well. But that transition from playground into class is often a bit tricky. And it might also be transitioning from saying goodbye to a parent into your classroom if you're an educator. And we're also finding that a lot of kids are becoming quite sensorily overloaded from things like noise and crowds and busy classrooms and changing environments. So lots is happening for them. So let's just have a little look at what affects a child's ability to actually regulate, to self-regulate. Okay, so there's a couple of reasons. Their brain development. So young children will rely on a different part of their brain more than their thinking brain. So young children in particular rely more on their emotional center of their brain than sort of the thinking prefrontal cortex side. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't use it, but their emotions often will dictate the output. Okay, so this means that you as adults are important in guiding to regulate their emotions while their brain's going through this sort of maturation process. Also, some kids, because a lot of people say, can some kids, do they have like a better ability to be able to self-regulate? Some children absolutely are more naturally and more emotionally reactive or sensitive than other kids. It's just who they are. It doesn't mean that it's not as equally as important for these kids to develop the skills around self-regulation. In fact, it's probably just as important, if not more important, because they have that natural sensitivity and being a little bit more emotionally sensitive. While others can also be, they can be more adaptable, easygoing, but it's really important, no matter what the temperament or personality is, that the ability to self-regulate is still important. One of the things that does impact kids, and I see this a lot, is relationships, and the attachment and relationships that they have in their life. So kids that have really secure relationships with caregivers, and that can be the parents, that can be a grandparent, it can be also their teacher. If they have good connections, then they feel more emotionally secure and a lot more emotionally safe. And when kids feel really supported, whether or not they're in all of their beautiful range of emotions, when they're feeling supported no matter what emotion they're in, they actually develop stronger regulation skills. So whether or not they feel supported when they are sad, if they're feeling supported when they're frustrated, or even when they're feeling happy and really light, kids who feel really supported through this gamut will also have usually better skills to be able to regulate themselves. Um, some other things that really help kids with their self-regulation is predictable routines. And this often will help reduce feelings of anxiety and emotional overwhelm. All right. So we can't always be really predictable. We don't, things always happen. Things always pop out of the blue. But the more predictable routines can be, whether they're at home or at school, um, kids usually thrive on that predictability. It's just like if I was to take a calendar off you for work and go, I just want you to get through the day. I'm not going to give you your calendar, but you have to try to just go with the flow. What will end up happening is you'll do things like you will take longer at a task, you'll run late to meetings, you probably won't have lunch, or if you do, you might take lunch even longer because you don't know what's coming up next. So the day becomes very unpredictable and sometimes even quite chaotic. And for some kids, this predictable routines is actually required. It's necessary for them. But look at predictable routines as just guiding them and letting them know sort of what the flow is of the day. And it gives them that beautiful base and foundation of which they can then work from. So really a chaotic classroom or a chaotic home environment in the morning, getting them off to school can make self-regulation a lot harder. So if you're a working parent and you are trying to get kids out the door in the morning, if that is a chaotic start to your day, then what we find is the flow on effect to that will actually affect the rest of your day at work. And so you're getting the kids, everything, doesn't matter what age they are, if it's a chaotic start to the day, you have to put more effort and more energy into having a calm start to the day or calm flow from the day. So that more effort and more energy is usually based off you being really tired anyway because the morning was chaotic. So these smooth routines that I often talk about, I have talked about that in many of my podcast episodes and in any of my blogs, any of the articles that I have on LinkedIn. Often when I talk about routines, it's coming through the lens of allowing people to feel secure, feel calm, but also come off a really good foundation and a good basis for which you can really thrive throughout your day. Because we know that things don't always go as planned. But imagine how difficult it would be if you had no plan at all. I mentioned a little bit before too, sensory processing differences. So what I mean by this, I'm not going to get into this too much in this episode, but things like loud noises, bright lights, crowded spaces can really overwhelm kids. It can make kids feel really unsafe. And what we see is when kids don't have the ability to self-regulate or the understanding of what's required when they're feeling those emotions in that particular moment, we'll see big meltdowns or we'll see different behaviors that, probably don't match the situation. And that can be really confusing for you as the adult, can be confusing for the peers around that child, but it also can be really confusing and sometimes really scary for their children that are experiencing those sensory overwhelm pieces. But that's a whole nother episode that I will do at some stage. The kids that find it really difficult to process sensory information will usually need a lot more support from the adults in their life. The last point I really want to talk to you about is, when what really affects a child's ability to self-regulate is really boring because we know this stuff. It's like, I know this, Ange. Sleep, good nutrition, and getting them to exercise. They all directly impact our ability to self-regulate. So you know that when you're really tired, you're more cranky. You can't deal with your emotions, or even just your body feels tired. So sleep is really important, and getting into a great sleep routine at this part of the year is absolutely crucial. No late nights, no devices in bedrooms. And this is for your kids as much as you, and for you beautiful educators that are listening as well. sleep, sleep, sleep. You're going to need your energy to get through the next couple of weeks. Eating really well, don't miss lunch, don't miss breakfast, have a good lunch. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have an Instagram perfect lunchbox for your child, but just making sure that they have a really good, well-rounded lunchbox. And I see too often educators who contact me and say that they're really struggling with a couple of the kids in their class. They're not settling, they're really tired, they seem emotionally overwhelmed. We look at their lunchboxes and it's just all white. It's all refined. It's like sugary foods, it's white breads, it's not food that feeds them well and gives them that sustained energy. So just have a look. Does it look healthy? And just put in, if your kids are hungry enough, they will get to the cherry tomatoes at some point. But just make sure that they're getting the sleep, the nutrition, and also the movement that they want. That when they're getting home, yep, they're relaxing, they're having a break, but also then getting outside and playing and doing all the fun stuff. So hopefully just those couple of things, and I'll just go through them just so that you can go, right, what are the things that will affect my child's self-regulation, their age and the stage at which they're at. Yes, there are temperament and personality impacts, but emotional self-regulation is still as important. There's also the attachment and relationships as well. So how secure they feel when they're with you in all of their gamut of their emotions. Routines and environment. So being able to be predictable in what's coming up. Being aware of sensory processing difficulties as well. And, are they feeling overwhelmed by things in their environment? Is there other different behaviors that are going on for them? And also they're getting the sleep, food, movement as well. So this all affects a child's ability. Now, I feel like when I go through that, it could actually be adding to your overwhelm. All right. As a parent, you will know if you look at your child and you're going, yes, they're tired, but don't always assume that they're just tired. Okay, it could be other things going on. Be a little detective, put your detective hat on and think what factors could be impacting my child's big emotions right now, and what are some of the strategies that I can give them to help them sort of understand, hey, you're feeling like this. Now, these are some things we can do. What does your body need right now? And that's a great question that I often ask when I'm sort of supporting parents, is asking your kids, what do you need right now? Like, what does your body need right now? And it's a really great way to take out the labeling of the emotion and putting kids in their body, because sometimes we can anchor into our body a lot more than what we can into the sort of logical, emotional words and labels. Now, for you educators that are listening to this, all of this still applies to you. If you're getting cranky, if you feel like that you're tired during the day, or whatever emotion you're feeling, if you're feeling frustrated, just take a step back and think, where are the areas that could be impacting on me right now, so that you can actually take care of yourself as well. So a couple of things I want to do before we sort of finish up a little bit, okay, is what are some of the strategies that you guys can model to kids? Because we know that kids, they really learn through, yes, experience, but through watching how things are done. So they need role models in their life, and they need models in their life to go, is that how I do it? So rather than saying to a child, this is just as an example, if they're feeling really big emotions and they're having a big meltdown, you're just saying to them, calm, calm, calm. The better approach in those situations is saying to your child, I can see right now that, your voice is loud and you're feeling something big right now. When I feel like this, sometimes I go and have a drink, or I just need some quiet, and you give them the strategy. So you're recognizing how they're feeling. You're not labeling the emotion, because some of the emotions can look the same. Sometimes we can put our emotions, like if we're excited, can actually sometimes be the same as if we're really, really hyper aroused. So we're feeling really overwhelmed and we don't know what to do. They can look exactly the same, but they're very different. And even just feeling sad or feeling guilty. So, your behavior could look the same, but the experiences are very different and the emotions are different. So just labeling what you're seeing, acknowledging what you're seeing in the child, and also just giving them some strategies around what works for you or what could work for them. Because then what you're doing is you're teaching them, hey, when this is happening, these are some of your options, rather than just going, hey, when this is happening, work through it, deal with it, because your child doesn't have the skills yet to know how to do that. So that's a really good teachable moment. And for the educators that are listening to this, often what I would do when we're working through some of those big emotions in classrooms, when you might be finding it a bit tricky, because let's face it, behaviour is tricky, and some of those big behaviours or behaviours that are interrupting your class or that you're finding difficult to sort of manage or be a part of your class. It's really important for those kids to also develop the skills and strategies of what they can call on in the classroom environment too. So giving them not only just identifying how they're feeling or what it looks like for you that they're feeling, but also then giving them some of the strategies that's okay for them to use. Because remember, self-regulation is all about the situation that they're in as well. It's not just about what they're feeling, it's recognizing it, it's experiencing it, but it's also what is the, a good response for this current situation. And what they're allowed to do at home might be very different to what is acceptable at school. So as educators, teaching them what is acceptable at school is really important, because that's self-regulation for that environment. Okay, really important point. All right, so a couple of things just on, I guess to continue this conversation. As you can hear, this is a really important topic, and so much more information I can share. So for you educators that are like, I want to know this, for March, which is next month from the recording of this, come and join us. The whole month is about self-regulation for the students in your class. You understanding it, you experience it, you role model it. How can you support it for all your kids? How can you set up an environment where self-regulation is just a part of what you do and what the kids do? So that's all of March. So jump on board now, become a member of the Learning Bridge. Jump on over to angelalockwood.com.au/educators. And all the information's on there. So if this is something where you're like, I really want to know more about this, then please jump on there, and we are going to be talking more about this. And there's going to be resources for you that you can access as well, all as a part of that membership. So finishing off, self-regulation is a skill, and kids need us as the adults in their life to teach them what it looks like, how it feels, and also what to do in that particular situation. And giving them some of those strategies is important. Now, what I hear a lot with adults when I talk about this is they're like, I don't even know what to do. So what's the right thing to do? If you just go through that process that we've already talked about by sort of labeling and expressing their emotions openly, but also what you're seeing, kids then understand that it's okay to have a whole range of emotions. I don't just have to be happy, sad, and angry. They're like the big three, right? So an example of this might be, hey, I'm feeling really frustrated because I've lost my keys. I'm going to just take a big deep breath and go look again. So you can hear your kids are seeing that you're feeling frustrated. First of all, I didn't realize adults feel frustrated. You're saying why you feel frustrated, but then you're also giving them the strategy of what to do. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is take a deep breath and then I'm going to look again. All right, another one might be, you see it in the child and you say, like, I see you're really upset. Are you feeling frustrated because of anything that happened at school? And then what that does is it opens up a conversation that, hey, I can see it. I sort of understand. Let's have a chat about it when you're ready. Okay. Also, another thing, whether it be you're an educator or the parent, is making sure that you actually stay calm in stressful situations. And a lot of my work with adults is obviously all about this. I wrote a book called Switch Off: How to Find Calm in a Noisy World. So being calm in stressful situations is so important because it allows you to just take stock, self-regulate, and then work out what is the next best thing for me to do in this situation. And our kids are learning by watching you. So if you're an educator in the front of a classroom and you're freaking out every time someone walks and pops their head in the door, which, let's face it, happens all the time in schools, if you're getting frustrated with that, then kids will look at your frustration and go, oh, okay, so that important person in my life gets angry or gets frustrated when someone comes in, then that's okay. That's how I can be as well. So, calm tones, even when you're feeling frustrated. And what also kids really notice, and you see a lot of these videos online where kids really overreact or they say something really adult like because they've heard their parents say it. And we think it's hilarious because it's like, well, the kids are, maybe cussing or saying a swear word. Because that's what my husband does, or that's what I do, or they're doing a behavior because they have seen you do it. Then let's take that and go, well, kids also are watching everything else you're doing. So if you're staying calm in stressful situations, and they'll go, okay, I can do that too. Mum or dad or my brother, he's calm. So how do I do that? And so that way you can then model that behavior as well. Things like, if they knock over a glass of milk, do you freak out and go, oh my gosh, I told you to be careful with that? Or do you then go, oh, that's so frustrating that you've knocked your glass of milk over. Now, how are we going to clean that up? And then that way, what it becomes is, hey, I'm with you, I'm supportive with you, next to you. Let's come up with a solution together, and then you follow on. And it gives kids that really lovely, almost like a continuum. It's not like I've done something wrong and that's it. It's like, hey, something's happened. There's an outcome. There's solution, and now there's an outcome to it, and you can feel it's a lot more calm then. Things like just predictable routines that we talked about before. It does give, if your child is a little bit worried about being at school, and the next couple of weeks, it's maybe not even be the first week, it might be when kids start to realize, oh my gosh, I'm in this class for the whole year. Or for kids that are starting school, it might be like, oh my goodness, we're actually here for a long time and I don't get to go home. That's where you might see a lot of these big emotions happen. So just preparing kids through the language that you use, like after breakfast, we'll brush our teeth and then get ready for school. Or as you educators, it might be in the morning, what we're going to be doing is doing some learning, and then we're going to have a visit from the principal, and then we're going to have morning tea, and then we're going to come back into class. Things like visuals are really important. I've done a lot of work around visual schedules. In fact, one of the months on the Learning Bridge, I gave teachers a whole lot of visual schedules for them to use, so that there is some of that predictability in the class as well. And what it does, it just gives kids that fallback, right? They go, I know what's happening, and it'll be okay. And if something changes, then you've got a point of reference that you can speak off. All right, the next couple of weeks, just make sure too you have, their emotional check-ins with the children in your life. Not even if they're just starting school, but if they're starting a new year, particularly important if they're changing schools as well. Just have emotional check-in with your kids, like, how are you feeling today? What did that feel like when that happened today? And just what it does is it builds self-awareness for kids, and it also builds a bit of an emotional vocabulary as well. And it also shows your kids that you're there to support them as well. All right. There's a whole range of other things, but I reckon that's probably enough for you, for those of you that are listening for this part of the year. All right. We will pick up more around self-regulation over the course of the year. But right now, the most important things for you is to almost just be a detective. Right? If you have got big emotions in your family or big emotions in your class, just go through that process of going, okay, I need to work with the child to see that they're feeling safe and supported. I also need to help them work through and give them some strategies on what they can do when they're feeling those big emotions. And that's a really important distinction, that yes, labeling is an important thing to do, helping our kids understand what emotions are, but giving kids support around how their emotions feel takes out the cognitive understanding, trying to take out that load of going, but I'm sad, they're sad, but they don't look like how I'm feeling. What it does is, when you can start to go, emotions feel a certain way in your body, then it becomes a very personal thing that we can then work with. So again, being there, supporting your kids over the next couple of weeks. Make sure that they've got that sleep and nutrition sorted, that they're having downtime, but also that they're still continuing to play and have fun and do those things. But routines are also going to be important for you, but don't be a stickler and go, nope, this is what we do on these days. If your child comes home and you can just tell they've had enough, if they need to be on their own, let them be on their own. But also, if they want to be with you, you're just going to have to let that go a little bit as well and let them be with you. And for you beautiful educators, don't forget to come over to the educators page for the Learning Bridge, angelalockwood.com.au/educators. I am here to support you through your teaching this year. And I'll give you more of these strategies, more of these support, because I can guarantee you there'll be lots of big emotions that you'll even find tricky to work with this year. And I can be your partner in sort of working through some of the skills that you can develop in yourself, but also for your students as well, so that you can thrive through the year and so can they. So today was all about supporting self-regulation in kids. And really it comes down to modeling what self-regulation looks like and helping your children understand that all of the emotions are extremely normal. They're okay to experience. And if we are experiencing emotions that feel uncomfortable or feel scary, or even feel good, we're there to support them no matter what with the skills and the strategies to help them really thrive. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully, you found that really useful. If you did, please share it with somebody, whether it be a teacher in your life or whether it be another parent who is, in this exciting milestone time of school starting or transitioning schools, or even just starting a new school year. Please pass it on to them, share, but also don't forget, Distracted. I really love giving this information to you, and hopefully you find it really useful in your life of helping you, find traction in your life, find focus in your life, not always be feeling so overwhelmed, and understanding yourself and your thinking a lot better and how you can really thrive in this age of distraction. But thanks so much for joining me, everybody. Again, the Learning Bridge, you educators, angelalockwood.com.au/educators. I would love to welcome you into the community. But all the best for this beautiful, wonderful, exciting time of the year. The very fact you've made it right to the end of this episode is telling me that you really care about doing what's best for the children in your life. And for that, I just thank you so much. But have a wonderful start to the year, and I'll see you on next episode of Distracted. Thanks so much, everyone.